let's start. There was some roster news for the Saints yesterday. I'd like to get your feelings on. Let's start with the offensive line with adding James Hurst. The guy's played a lot of football in his career, man. What'd you think of the addition?
Yeah, here's the crazy thing. In scouting him, he was a 4-year starter at North Carolina. Started 49 games at left tackle for the Tar Heels. He breaks his leg in the Belk Bowl in late December. So the NFL flags him for being an injury risk. So he gets flagged. He gets undrafted. I thought he was a middle-round pick. He ends up playing a lot of football for the Ravens at left guard, left tackle, right tackle. And I think he's better on the left side, to be honest. He seems to be more comfortable there than on the right. But here's a guy who's versatile, has played at both tackle positions, can play inside, and has started 44 games in this league. So he's got something on the resume there. Mm-hmm. Now, he is going to be suspended for the first 4 games for violating the PED policy in the NFL. But you got a guy who's played at left tackle, and that's big because nothing. Teron Armstead, he's one of the best left tackles in pro football. The problem has been keeping him on the field for 16 games, and that he's really fought that throughout his career. And now you've got a guy that has played it. And I know from talking to different offensive line coaches, you can say, okay, let's move Pete over to left tackle and let's move this guy to left guard. Really what they would like to do, keep the other 4 guys in place and just get you another left tackle. Mm-hmm. So now you've got a guy who's experienced there, has played there in that spot. Their offense with the Ravens has been heavy-duty power football. They're not doing a lot of tricking on what they do on offensively. Now, Lamar brings another element to the game, and even their philosophy of the draft has started to change now with a lot more emphasis on run after catch with the players that they select at running back and wide receiver and tight end. But here's a guy who's experienced, played across the board, and I know we've brought it up numerous times on this show. Sean has talked about versatility, the ability to play more than one position if you're a backup player. And so here's a guy who has played both tackle positions and left guard. Seen a ton of work at the left tackle position. And that's the spot there that if you had an injury to Teron, that you wouldn't have to make 2 moves for one. You only would have to make 1 move. And I get that. And that's a difficult assignment. I don't care in what brand of football you play in, high school, college, the pros, to just have to put in the guy at left tackle instead of moving your left guard to left tackle and then putting the other guy at left guard. You would think about that. Now you got a guy who has played both. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to make all those maneuvers like we've seen in the past.
Mike, where are the – so that's interesting, though. Would you say definitively that you think Hurst, if he's healthy, he makes the team?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, here's the deal. Mm-hmm. He won't make it right off the bat because he's got to spend 4 weeks, on the suspension list. So, bringing him back in 5 weeks, I think he makes this team. He's a guy that has played and has started, and he gives you versatility. So he checks the boxes of what you're looking for, especially from the Saints. And in this time of year, this is when you win. Not in August and September to make roster moves. You got to do it early because now all of a sudden the players are getting more and more condensed. You don't have as many to pick from. But here you have a guy that has started and it can play multiple positions. I want him on my football team, and he's not costing you a ton of money.
Right.
At this stage.
So here's my question then, Mike, about camp battles, because I think we can all assume we know who the first 6 guys are if you include Nick Easton and Cesar Ruiz. So we know the first 6 are, and if you give a spot, assume Hurst has a spot that's 7, how many do they keep, and where are the position battles on the offensive line? Because that's really, they've added a lot of bodies there, Mike. It's interesting to see how that might shake.
Well, Nick Easton's going to get a spot, okay? Because he's also a multi-position player.
Right.
And that he's played both center guard. So he slides into that position also. Mm-hmm. We've seen with Will Clapp play a lot of guard, but also they bring him in on the bulk positions when they're going to run the football, almost like another tight end. So you got that particular part. So what's going to happen with Omama, who has played both guard and tackle? Does any of the guys that you bring in, as rookie undrafted free agents make the team? And also, they thought enough last year of Ethan Greenrich to keep him on the 53-man roster the entire season. Because I think they felt if they cut him loose, another team, and tried to sneak him on the basically workout regime, that somebody would grab him and put him on their 53-man roster. So that's the battle there. And I never worry about having too much. I'm always worried about not having enough. And injuries and age all seemingly play a part when that happens. But that's a big battle because who I did mention, too, was Cameron Tom.
Yeah.
Who, they've thought a lot of, who has played. I think he's a better center. He has seen some work at guard. So you've got some versatility there. But I think in bringing in Hurst, you have someone having played both tackle spots. That's unusual that you can get somebody that has experience starting at both spots this late in the game. But the reason he's there is because of the 4-game suspension. But the Saints were willing to wait.
Noah Spence is a guy who you and I, Mike, I remember when he was coming out of Eastern Kentucky, talked about him so much leading up to that draft in 2016. And I was optimistic that he might be able to find it sort of in the way that Nick Fairley found it in New Orleans. He tears his ACL. He's done for the year. How big of an impact might Spence have been able to make on this team, and do they seek out another possibility as an edge rusher?
You never have enough edge rushers.
Right.
It's just like cover corners. You never have enough of those guys. But what they've done post-draft, they go out and get Marcus Hunt, and then last week they signed Anthony Chickillo. Now, okay, they say, well, he played outside linebacker. Really, he's a defensive end. That's what he is. That's what he played at Miami. And really, when he played at Pittsburgh, he really was a stand-up defensive end. So you've already brought two guys to the table there. And you have a little bit of depth at the defensive end position with a Trey Hendrickson coming back again for his third season, and a guy that he's one of the interesting players. And I wish, if you'd have had the OTAs, we could have seen it. Carl Granderson, because you took a little bit of a gamble with Carl. He was a guy that, had he not had the off-the-field issue, he's a middle-round pick, similar to Hendrickson. He'd have been a middle-round selection. He did have it. The Saints were patient with that, understood the situation. He didn't get any of those workouts. He comes in, they give him a 2-week exemption. He's on the 53-man roster. That tells you one thing. Man, that guy can play because, not a lot of guys, off of his situation walk right in and he's ready to play. And he did give him some time as a pass rush defensive end. Now, he's a tall drink of water guy, physically has to get stronger, but you saw the pass rush potential in him. So you've got some depth there. And Noah was a maybe player anyway. When he was at Tampa, he would flash it, but they had enough of it. Their deal was, okay, you got to make plays. So they cut him loose. He was sort of out on the street for a little while as a player. He became almost a vagabond defensive end, and you sign him up. I think working with Ryan would have helped him because I really believe Ryan Nielsen is one of the best defensive line coaches in college or pro football. And he's proven that. And just what he's been able to do with the Saints, I think he's going to give Granderson a great opportunity to become an impact player as, say, your third defensive end. The key, and we've talked about it before the draft, afterwards, and even today, the key for the Saints is keeping healthy up front along the defensive line. When you lost Sheldon Rankins and Marcus Davenport in 1 week, man, Matt, that's a devastating blow. Because, again, you can say next man up. My thing is, who's the next man? He ain't as good as what you just lost. And their ability to get pressure on the quarterback. So Is the possibility there if the right price of another defensive end? Yeah. But I think if they're going to spend money, and I'm talking about not just a little change here and there, I think it would be on a corner. Because if you look at it, okay, on paper, you got Jenkins on one side, Lattimore on the other side. PJ has filled in a lot, certainly at both corner, in the nickel, and at safety. And you got Patrick Robinson, who's up in age, and he didn't seem to be the same player in preseason and the little that he played last year. But, okay, you haven't had an injury yet. It's the same thing at wide receiver. I would sweat that too, because people say, well, if you draft a receiver, he's going to be the fifth option. Fifth option? That's if everything goes right. What goes right in this world?
True.
Come on. This is the sports world. Nothing goes exactly right. So in the offseason, when the season ended, what was the one area on offense everybody said you got to get better at?
There's no question. It was a receiver.
It was a receiver. You bring in Sanders, and knock on wood, it doesn't happen. What if something happens to him?
Then you're holding your breath for Ty Montgomery or Tre'Quan Smith or someone like that.
Okay. How long are we going to hold that breath for Tre'Quan?
I'm with you.
Okay. He's either got to squat or get off the pot. One of the two. I mean, I don't buy this anymore. Oh, it takes 3 years for that receiver to 3 years? Man, I'm developing him for another coach if it's taking me 3 years on that point. Now, Montgomery's different because of the fact I kind of know what I got with him. A guy that's played both running back and receiver. It's a huge year for Tre'Quan. He's got to be more than the potential player. The lights got to come on. So every team fights that because you can sort of make yourself believe certain things about a player. And then you start to publicly tell people that. And that's when I start to get a little bit worried. When they're trying to sell you on a player that hasn't really done anything. And my thing is, okay, why hasn't he done it before? And don't give me this stuff about 3 years into the program and then all of a sudden the light's going to come on. I worry a little bit about that part. And you do have some younger players on the roster that I'd like to see a lot of and showed some potential as a big target receiver in little Jordan Humphrey. And can Emmanuel Butler flip the switch? Can he do what he did in practice and do it in a game? We saw that was maybe not the best thing for him early when they put him in games. That he seemed uncomfortable.
Mike, his first target, he dropped the ball right in his hand.
Man, didn't drop it. It went through his hands. Right. It wasn't even a drop. It went through it. And so you see a little bit of it. And it's something even Sean brought up. I remember last year on one of the Monday night shows and talking to him about the undrafted free agents and how big of an impact that they've played on this team throughout his time frame. And he brought up about Deontay Harris. And he said, I didn't really fear about Deontay's size. He said, that wasn't a big thing. We saw his explosiveness. We saw his ability to make something happen with the ball in his hands. He said, this was the thing I didn't know. He's playing in front of 5, 6, 7,000 people at Assumption. Now he's playing in front of 70,000. And the physical part of the game is a lot different when you're playing in the NFL than at Assumption College. I don't care what college you're playing at, even LSU and Alabama, that jump there is a jump, speed, and physical when you get to the NFL. And he handled that very well. And ball security, because that, I think, was the big concern. And he did put the ball on the ground a couple of times, but it wasn't a major issue with Deontay. He ends up in a Pro Bowl. But I think most people looked at him, man, he's awfully small, Assumption College. I'm going to pass on it. And I give Peyton a lot of credit. I think he's done a really good job of giving that undrafted free agent every opportunity. Once you get to camp, then everybody's even now. You'd love to keep the draft choice. But if that undrafted free agent's there, and he went through the scenario with Pierre Thomas and Alan Pittman, could have easily kept his fourth-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of coaches, and the guy that was here before him, I can guarantee he wouldn't have kept Pierre. He'd have kept Pittman because he would have thought his reputation was on the line in Pittman, so he wouldn't have done that.
You talking about Jim Hazelate?
Jim Hazelate, I guarantee you. The one thing with Jim, he would complain about. He's like, man, Mike, I hate these rookies. They make rookie mistakes. I say, Coach, you know what I'd really be concerned about? The veterans you got. They making rookie mistakes. I'm not – the rookie mistakes I can almost take, but the veterans making rookie mistakes is another deal. And he would always laugh and, no. The rookies, they don't help you win anything. And it does go to show with Peyton, who is old school in a lot of ways. And he does have new school ideas, and he knows how to kind of dig into you a little bit on social media. And I get that part, and that's all great and fine, especially when you got a lot of time on your hands. But he gives that guy, once he gets to camp, that opportunity. And you're not always going to be right. He didn't get it right on Ninkovich. He goes to the Patriots and becomes a really good player. They didn't have the right vision for Akeem Hicks. He goes to New England. They try to sign him as soon as Akeem told him what he wanted. Sorry, but he got paid with Chicago, and he's ended up being a really good player. And they got a young Akeem Hicks. He's on the bayou. One day, that's what Maason Smith's going to be.
I like that comp, Mike. I like that a lot.
No, I'm telling you, I've seen him enough. He is, man. If Akeem Hicks had a little brother, it would, and I say little only because of age. It would be Maason Smith. He's very, very much built and has a lot of the same sort of traits that Akeem Hicks has. And so you missed on that. But look what you were able to get throughout the years, and guys that have been being contributors to this football team. And, kickers is another part that aggravated him. And, he got Will Lutz. Lutz ain't beating out Justin Tucker in Baltimore. Come on. That guy's the most accurate kicker in NFL history. So when you get a shot, he gave him here. And he did make a comment that everybody was, what? The best workout he had ever seen a kicker have. Mm-hmm. And Will Lutz been pretty damn good for his team. So I think it's another element of him and a sell point to that guy that's not drafted, that he wants to get on that phone and say, man, let me tell you about the guys that we've been able to bring in, and I've given them that opportunity. It's the same way, I think, and Coach O does it a little bit differently than he does, but you think about how they got Justin Jefferson, how they got him coming into the mix. You look at how Lloyd Cushenberry got to LSU. Clyde, how many teams were lined up for the 5'6" running back? There wasn't a lot of them. No matter the rating or not, a lot of people liked him. I don't know about loved him, but they saw something in him and what he's turned out to be throughout the years at LSU. So it is part of kind of the new world in relating to a player that may not necessarily be the top guy, but you see something in him you think a lot of and that he can fit in what you do. Where's the list of schools after Joe Burrow when he left Ohio State?
LSU, Cincinnati? Was there another one in there maybe? I don't remember.
If it was, they were way behind those other two. And look at Cole Tracy. And I give Greg McMahon a lot of credit that Greg sold that to Coach O. Cole was at Assumption, and he had one more year left. Would you have gotten the All-American linebacker from North Dakota State today? If this was 2 years ago, would you have gotten that guy?
I don't believe
Hell
so.
no, you wouldn't have gotten him. I can answer that. That's quick. You wouldn't have gotten him. It is part of the sell to the program. And I do think, Matt, as much as recruiting we look at it, you got to kind of break it down in three ways. In the fact that not only are you recruiting high school players, you're also recruiting the redshirt freshmen and the redshirt sophomores to stay, and then there's the transfer players. I do think it's becoming more and more a factor in college football today when you look at the success of especially at the quarterback position, to be able to hit that point. You look at what's happened at Oklahoma. Look at what happened at Ohio State once Haskins left, and they were able to get Fields to come in from Georgia. You look at what Georgia might be pulling off. They got Newman from Wake Forest, and now after J.T. Daniels from USC. So, man, there's a lot of maneuvering around here. How well you've been able to handle that. You look at LSU, Burrow, Cole, Cox coming in as the All-American linebacker, filling in spots that you've lost maybe numbers with to the NFL early, that you can do that. And that's why you want to keep a scholarship or two. And some people, you got to give them all out to the freshmen. Well, guess what? How are you going to sign that transfer guy? The same people that's screaming for that, they also want the transfer guy. How are you going to bring him in if you don't have the scholarship at that point? I do think it's the new world of college football, similar to the NFL on selling veteran free agents or rookie undrafted free agents. The same thing is now happening in college football because of the transfer portal.
Mike, let's talk about the LSU defensive line. Last week, Ed Ogeron went through the offensive line. This week, he kind of went through the defensive line. Do you foresee any issues transitioning from the 3-4 to the 4-3 for that unit?
No, not really. You got a lot of bodies there, and when you look at depth, especially inside, what I'm talking about now, that's as good as I've seen it in the past 6-7 years.
Agreed.
A defensive tackle, man, because Tyler Shelvin on the nose, I think he's one of the best interior players in college football. And, he's backed up by Apu Ika. And, you got Jadeveon Guillory. We have time one day, I'll tell you a story. Man, I was at a camp with him, and I finally had to tell the director, you got to take him out of the drill. I was worried about the other guy's safety, because he was beating these guys. You talk about, man, he is pieced together. So you got a guy there that it'll be interesting to see with him because physically, from a power standpoint, he's got it. Now, he needs a little bit of technical work. So you got three guys there that can play that nose. And that defensive tackle, Glenn Logan, who's played some end. And then I think his best position is inside. Neil Farrell has also seen work as both a defensive end and defensive tackle. Every time Ogeron opens his mouth up about defensive tackles, who does he bring up? Jaquelian Roy.
Mm-hmm.
Every time he opens his mouth, he says something about Roy and the possibility that he could play. I think Eric Taylor, who they brought in as a freshman, I think is a better inside player than out on the edge. I think he's a defensive tackle. And the fact that they've used Jarrell Cherry at both defensive end and defensive tackle.
Mike, is he big enough to play tackle? Some people
say yes.
Some people said he's put on weight. Do you know if he's up to that 280 range, or is he still in that 250 range?
No. I think he's in that 270 range, and he's interesting because he gives you a little smaller player, but boy, it's his ability to get off the snap. And if you have an unathletic offensive guard, that guy's going to give him some problems.
Okay.
Because the one thing with Cherry is it's his ability to get up the field. And so, boy, you got a lot of depth at the defensive tackle position. What I can't tell you about is any of them at defensive end.
Bingo.
Okay, and no one can do that today. McClendon, athletically he looks it, but it's a guy who's played tight end and making the transition. Ali Gay's a JUCO. Now, he's built for the position. Now, he looks like that's what a defensive end supposed to look like. But, I don't know, can he translate what he did in the JUCO ranks into SEC football? Justin Thomas has seen a little bit of time, but not a lot. And you got B.J. Ojulari, a freshman, who Ed talks about quite a bit. And, can he help as a pass rusher? Andre Anthony is another guy who, entering his senior year, he's been a potential guy. Can he turn potential into production? So you can see already what you got here. Got a lot of talent. You got a lot of depth at defensive tackle. And some movable parts here at defensive tackle. You got a lot of auto nose at defensive end. You don't know. You didn't see him in spring. So that's where I think you could have had a little better view of that part of it. And it's going to be a big part of, I'm bringing up Maason Smith again, but he's going to be a midterm guy. So whoever gets him, if it's LSU, hopefully, he can come in January and he's going to see that playing time. I think that really helps a young defensive lineman to get that work in early, where you can give it to him a little bit of teaspoon. It's not tablespoon.
Mm-hmm.
If the NCAA doesn't rule that you can have extra practices, man, none of us are going to know any of this until it's regular season at defensive end. Now, they do have guys that look like they can play the part, but there's not a lot on the resume there. But you know what, Matt? I could say that about Florida. I could say that about Auburn.
Yeah.
I could say that about Alabama. Now, again, all of them sort of have same connected dots, don't they? They're really good inside, like Alabama. They still really good inside. The edge guys, not so sure. Auburn, what they lost along the defensive line to the NFL, when you lose a first-round pick in Derek Brown and you lose Marlon Davidson, who's a second-round pick, man, those guys, they ain't there with their hands up in the air to get in there. It's few and far between. Florida to lose their two starting defensive ends. So, Matt, you know what? Doesn't everybody in the SEC sort of look the same?
Yeah.
That they got talent inside, but, man, you don't know anything off the edges. And I brought it up to you last week. Name me the top edge rusher in the SEC today. And you got a difficult time coming up with that guy. It's not like maybe we've seen in past years where you can spot it real quickly. And it is becoming more and more part of the college football world that is going to hit the NFL also in big numbers. When in this draft there was only 2 defensive ends, if you want to call Caleb on a defensive end, that were picked in round 1, and a grand total of 17 drafted. Where are they coming from? Where's the new, era of those defensive ends? You can see where it's the sea change that's happened. I got to see it because when you go to these camps and you see such the low numbers that are playing a defensive end or outside linebacker, you say to yourself, man, eventually this is going to make a huge impact on not only the high school game but also college and then the bleed into the NFL, where you still have veteran players. And I told a veteran player this the other day. He's 33, still playing defensive end. I said, you know what I see coming out of college, you might have 4 more years left. And he laughed at me and said, come on. I said, no. What you see coming out, if you can stay healthy, you might not be a starter. You may be playing in this league for quite a number of years. Ain't nobody there better than you to beat you. So you have that shot. And we're seeing it here at LSU. Where you hopefully – that's why getting Savion from St. James was big because, again, he's going to need a little bit of weight. He's going to need a little bit of physical development with him. And, man, somebody compared him to Tyson Jackson. And my thing is, I know I'm getting up in age and my eyes aren't what they used to be. But I do remember when Tyson came out of high school, he didn't look like Savion did. No, the comp there is Arden Key because they're built the same. And Savion's, he'll be able to add, 15, 20 pounds to his weight. But Tyson Jackson was a 300-pound guy when he left LSU.
We talked about that comp, Mike. I don't remember who made it. It might. I don't know if it was a 24/7 guy or it was one of the national recruiting guys.
Well, he better spray the glasses.
Well, I think the idea was they could put a 20, 30 pounds on him and make him look. And when Tyson got to the NFL, he was playing more 3-4, right? And the Falcons beefed him up, didn't they, to 310? I mean, he was massive by the end of his career.
I remember a game, and I don't think she'd mind me saying this, but Jen Hale was doing sideline reporting, and Tyson was there. And they had him playing, and he was like 330 pounds.
Yeah, he was huge by the end of his career.
She told me, Mike, I was concerned about him. He was on that bench and really breathing really, really hard. Because, he wasn't a natural 330-pound guy.
Right.
He was a guy that was going to be 290 to 300, and they put a little bit of extra weight on him. But, Savion's never going to be a 290-pound defensive end. He's going to be a 255, 260 guy. He's never going to be that big weight. Now, they're comparing him to the areas where they grew up. I could see that. But, man, they're not built nothing close to the same in that particular deal. So you may be able to get some weight on him, but he's 235 pounds today, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So even if you put 25 pounds on him, he's still the second number might be a 6. Might.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a long
again,
way.
he's really, the comp there is more ardent, but to get him is huge. And then we got sidetracked with it, but because of the fact that you don't have that many guys. Who's the second best pass rush defensive end in Louisiana this year?
You tell me, Mike.
Okay, you got it. You answered the question. In essence, they aren't there. That's the thing. If people say, "Well, I got a kid, he's a little undersized." Well, they're all undersized,
right?
So now you're going up against a 6'7". You look at Darry Rosenthal and you say, that's what I got to beat? And look the size of that guy playing tackle. Or you look even at Detiller on the other side. And occasionally you might get an undersized guy that can do it, but I'm just telling you, Matt, from what I've seen throughout the years, and haven't been able to do it this year because there have been no camps, that is the area over the last 4 or 5 years has been the most dramatic change that I have seen in high school football, that they are not there anymore. They all got their hands up, playing receiver, playing tight end. That's what I want to do because I can play 7-on-7, 8-9 months out of the year. In a regular year, that's what they're doing. It's going to be interesting to see the Power 5 conference teams, how you going to get a pass rush on quarterbacks in 3 years from now. And all I can tell you is it's coming right up the middle. So if you recruiting, you better get guys that can play center and guard because that's where they're coming from.
Ask Mike, are these rumors true about the Saints looking at Jadeveon Clowney?
I think Jadeveon's looking at everybody.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think his agent is hitting the wires all over the place to see. He turned down his best deal with the Browns, and so I'm sure there's been contact. But, if I was in another city, I could probably say that too.
Yeah.
I think his agent has kind of rolled him around to see what will happen at this stage. But listen, he's a really good player. But you got him on a one-year deal. That's what he seems to be rolling with now because he turned down the multi-year deal with Cleveland. And so, I really couldn't answer that other than the fact that I do know from a number of different people. His agent has talked to everyone in the NFL. It's almost like Eli Apple, and Eli did come to terms today with the Carolina Panthers. So that's one of the corners that the Saints had spoke to after the season and had some conversation with, and Eli decides to sign with the Panthers today.
Cole Pierce on Facebook ask Mike, what's your impact freshman for LSU on offense and on defense?
Man, listen, if I went anybody other than Gilbert, you can take the gun to me. Because, again, I do listen to what Coach says.
Yeah.
Just every time you bring it up. I mean, he goes on and on and on and on and on about it. And so I would say Gilbert's the clear-cut guy on the offensive side. On defense, man, I'd love just because you play so much nickel and dime, Elias Ricks.
Okay.
Man, I want to see him play because everybody that I've spoke to in that part of the country that has seen him play tells me, man, he is something special. And so very interested in that. But if I had a 1B, it would be Roy.
Okay.
I heard the coach.
Yeah, he loves him, man. Ask Mike, do you think Maason Smith picks LSU?
Yeah, I think he does. Again, I don't want to talk for Maason, but if you're asking me the question, yes. And, he's made it known. I think man, listen, if I'm 16, 17 years old, man, wouldn't I want to make all them trips too? Man, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for him, and he could go anywhere he wants. But I think he ends up at LSU. I really do. I think he's had a great relationship with Coach O. I do know one thing, man, that track to Terrebonne High School, man, they got to repave the road over there for all those coaches that have been there.
Mike, we're about a minute left. This is Tim Henderson. Ask Mike where Brian Thomas ends up.
I'm going to lean to LSU. I know that he's a guy that they really want.
Okay.
Because I think that they're going to get 2 receivers from the state. I think they would like to get 2 receivers from the state, and you could figure it out.
Yeah.
On that part. But to be honest, Matt, I wouldn't be surprised. They signed 5 receivers in this class.
Okay.
Because you're going to lose. You're going to lose Jamar and Racy. Because of he's run out of eligibility.
Right. And
Terrace.
Yeah.
And you missed on 2 recruits last year.
Makes sense. He's Mike Detiller, SaintsReport.com, MikeDetiller.com, Saints News Network at SI.com. Check him out there, and he's with us here every Thursday. You the man, Mike D. We appreciate you as always for making time.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Matt.